Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Pinch Pot Virtual Mini Lesson. My name is Lisa Swanson. I am a teaching artist and a ceramic artist. My main discipline is ceramics and I work in clay. So today I'm really thrilled to be able to teach you how to make a pinch pot using the hand building technique. But we're not just going to make any pinch pot today. We're going to make pinch pots that communicate and tell your story, just like the pottery from the Southwest, where we live. So I wanted to show you this book. It's called Talking Pinch, or talk. It's not called Talking Pinch Pots. It's called Talking Pots, and it was the inspiration for this virtual mini lesson. And so this book is about deciphering the symbols of prehistoric people. And all throughout the book, there's different symbols and it tells the meaning. And when they say prehistoric symbols and prehistoric people, those are people from like 1,000 years ago. So the pottery that was being made by people 1,000 years ago, we are able to actually find pieces of and learn about their culture, their families, why they made the pottery. And the way that we learn all that is through the symbols and the artwork that they communicated about themselves on the surface of the pottery. So today we're going to make pinch pots that actually communicate your story. And so it's a wonderful thing because we actually live here in the great Southwest, in Arizona, and you could just go out anywhere in the desert and find these pieces. So we're going to make these pinch pots that actually are meaningful to us, that tell a story. So let's go ahead and get started. And I wanted to share with you that I created an instruction that you can download, that is the instructions, and it goes step by step. Like I'm going to go step by step while I'm teaching you, so you can follow along with it. So you can watch the video and also follow along with the instructions. So one of the things that's on those instructions is it talks about the supplies that you're going to need. So basically, you just need simple supplies like a pencil, maybe a plate, a fork, something that's pointed that you can actually carve designs into your clay. But the thing that is not simple, that you probably don't have around your house, is the clay. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So let me show you the clay that I use, which is pottery clay that is earthenware. It's a low temperature clay, and it's actually fired in a kiln. And so this is what it looks like. This is a 25-pound bag. And if you went to a ceramic store, they could sell you a 25-pound bag of this clay. It costs anywhere between like $12 to $15 for all this clay. The only thing is that once you make your talking pinch pot, you have to take it somewhere to be fired unless you have a kiln or you know somebody that has a kiln. So it has to be fired in a pottery kiln to be able to make it hard. So anyway, so that's this clay. But a lot of you don't have access to a pottery kiln. So I wanted to make this very accessible for you. So the other clay that I'm recommending it's an air dry clay. And this is called creative paper clay. And so this is an air dry clay, and it dries really extremely hard. And so you'd be able to, here I have an example of it. You're able to or you can sand it, and then you can see that you can carve it. This one is one that I did. But you can see it dries really hard and really white. And then you would paint it with acrylic paint, and you don't have to fire it. So anyway, and this costs about $12 also. So it's your choice which one that you would want to use and which one that you're, able to do. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to use the pottery clay. And I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to just cut myself a lump of clay. So step one is this is a wire. You can see I was holding it tight. One of the tools, pottery tools, very common pottery tool. And I just cut myself off a piece of clay. You want to make sure that the clay, you don't want like a giant piece of clay. You could even go smaller depending on the size of your hand, especially if this is your first time. If you've made pinch pots before, you could go bigger. But if this is your first time, I'm actually going to pull off a little bit of it. But let's say you don't have a wire, you can actually just pull off a section of the clay on there and you got a lump of clay, okay? So anyway, I'll do that. Okay. Let's see. So, but if you use regular clay, you always want to make sure you cover it back up. And even the paper clay too, because it will dry out from the air. So you want to make sure you cover it back up. I'm going to go ahead and move this off the table. There we go. Okay. All right. So the next thing you do, step number one, you get your lump of clay and you make it into a ball. So there we go. I'm hitting it into a ball. This is a great exercise. If you want to, you can also put it on the table. You can see I have canvas on the table. If you have a piece of canvas, that works good to use for your pottery. If not, you can use like a vinyl plastic tablecloth, anything like that. But even just like a square piece of canvas works good. Okay, so there we go. So I have it in a ball. And then you're going to take your thumb. It's very simple. And you're going to stick it right into the ball of the clay. And the wonderful thing about clay is there are no mistakes. So let's say you want to go about eighth of an inch from the bottom, quarter of an inch. But let's say you go all the way through the bottom. It's not a big deal. All you have to do is just smooth it back over. So whatever you do, don't worry about making mistakes, because that's the wonderful thing about clay is you can always fix everything. You just take a little bit of clay, stick it back on there, see, and smooth it back over. Okay, so I have my hole in my lump of clay, but as you can see, it's very thick on there. So I need to pinch the walls. So I'm going to take my thumb and my first finger, or my thumb, and you can use whatever finger. There's no really right way to do it. It's just what works for you. So I'm right-handed. So I'm going to pinch with my right hand, my thumb and my first fingers. See that? And then I'm going to use my other hand to hold and support the clay. And I'm going to give a pinch and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn. And I'm just going to keep doing that. Now you could decide, well, some people like their walls to be even, and some people like their walls to be asymmetrical. As I said before, there's no right or wrong. It's just a preference, okay? But as you can see, as I'm pinching, can you see the fingerprints that are being made? By my fingers, by my finger tips. I'm impressing my fingerprint into the clay. And each one of us, our fingerprints are unique to us. And so even if you don't carve something or paint something that is your story, like a representation of your story, just the fact that these are your fingers are the ones pinching the clay and that are being imprinted into this clay are your personal expression. And it's actually telling your story. This pot right now is telling my story because nobody else has fingers like mine. So I'm gonna emphasize my fingertips. I'm gonna use them as a design to tell my story on this pinch pot. So I'm just going around and I'm pinching and thinning out the walls. So you can see how much thinner the walls are right now. See that? Now, the other thing you want to think about is the form. The art elements that we're working with are form, texture. We're going to add line and color. Okay, so you want to think about the form. Every pot has a base, a bottom, a body, the body of the pot, and then a rim or a lip. Okay, so I'm gonna, right now, I'm getting down to the bottom, doing the bottom. So I'm gonna hold it in my hand. Do I want a rounded bottom? If I want a rounded bottom, I'm gonna hold it in my hand and I'm gonna kind of let it follow the contour. I'm just kind of smoothing it and following the contour of the palm of my hand. If I wanted a flat bottom, let me show you this. I would put it on this plate, or I could put it on the table and flatten it, but I grabbed this plate because I wanted to show you how once I have the walls thinned out, I can put it on the plate, kind of flatten it, and then I can use this plate as like a turntable. So I don't have to handle it too much. But I'm still going to handle it some because I'm making the form. Okay, so now you always want to look at the contour. Can you see the contour line of your pot? So I'm going to pinch this to make it, give it kind of a flare. I want it to flare out my rim. So it'll, and the reason that you want to pay attention to the rim, the base, the rim, and then the in between, anything kind of goes, but is because this is what finishes your pot off. Makes a statement, it finishes it off. So I want to flare mine out because it's making a statement that it's open. It's open for something to be put in it. And see, can you see my fingerprints on there? So that's my story. I'm already telling my story without having to even draw anything, right? It's kind of cool. Okay, so now I'm just smoothing out because I noticed I want this form to be a little bit more curved. So I'm going to put it in the palm of my hand again, and I'm just taking my middle finger and I'm pushing it out in the palm of my hand. So I'm going to do that, get that all done. Okay. All right, and then for the bottom, I'm just going to leave it the flat bottom. Okay, so there. So my pinch pot has been formed. So now the next step is to go ahead and I put on the sheet to you can grab some paper, and on the instruction sheet there's like one page is just symbols from Southwest symbols. So you might want to just kind of practice and draw. There might be a symbol that, like, maybe you love eagles and you really love that eagle symbol. So there might be a symbol that kind of pops out at you. So you might want to practice drawing it first on paper. You don't have to, it's optional, but it's just, sometimes it's good to design what you're going to do, or just kind of get your story written out. It could be like we were talking about, your story could be a memory. Maybe it's a memory from a long time ago, or maybe it's just your name. Maybe you want to just design your name on there, because whatever you put on there, whether somebody can tell what it is or not, it will be your story and your own personal expression. Okay, so I have that. Okay, so once you've drawn it out, if you want, the next step would be to go ahead and I think we're on step number 3, would be to carve it, right? Okay, so step number 3 would be, if you want to carve designs in there, you can carve it. This is a stylus, like people I think use them on their nails. I use them in my clay. And then what I think works great though, that I really like to, I use like pencils. Colored pencils. Here is just a regular pencil, a sharpened pencil. They're easier to hold than some of these thinner items. I do have this like wooden stick too. And I'm just gonna draw, I love spirals. So I'm just going to draw a spiral. See, I just drew a spiral, very easy on there. And it does make, because the clay is wet, it kind of makes for some little clay balls. Just leave them there and then let it kind of dry a little bit, and they'll just kind of, you could just wipe them right off. It's easier than trying to get them off now. And so I think, and then the other thing too is the tools that I have, and you might have some things around your house, but like I can take the back of this pencil and I can make circles. I can work with different shapes. So I'm doing circle and I'm making a pattern, a design. And then I maybe will put another spiral. I see a spot that looks perfect for a spiral right there. So that's another thing you want to do is kind of look at your clay and see, like maybe there's like kind of a crack there. So maybe I want to just go ahead and make a line there. You know, kind of see what's going on in it. It's kind of fun just to kind of work. There's another one, so I'm just going to turn it into a line. Put some straight lines on there now. And the different tools that you use will create like thinner lines, fatter lines. Okay, so I'm just kind of giving you examples of what you can do. Okay. Oh, and the other one more thing, and then we're going to move on. The other thing is forks. Forks are great. You can take a fork and make all kinds of texture and design on there. Okay, so that's how you would carve into it. Okay, so now moving on to painting, and then we're almost finished. Okay, so painting your clay. So this is the regular pottery clay that gets fired in the kiln. This is where we have to distinguish between the two different clays. This is the air-dried paper clay. So for the regular pottery clay that gets fired in a pottery kiln, you would use what they call underglazes. These are what they look like. They also come in smaller containers, just like acrylic paints you can buy like at the craft store or whatever. But anyway, so I use bigger containers. But these are called underglazes, and these are actually clay that's been watered down, and they add what they call oxides to give them color. So you're putting clay on clay. So when you paint them on, then they get you paint them on, they get fired, and they get fired with the glaze. And you can see the different, here's just some examples of some pieces that have been painted with underglazes and have a shiny glaze over them. So all the colors will come through. Here's one that is, you can see. I just brought a few examples up here so you can see them. Okay, so that's for this clay. And then the other clay, you can use the other clay, which is the paper clay. When it's hard, right, you would use acrylic paint that you just would buy at an art supply store. You can buy whatever colors, but you want to make sure that it's multi-surface paint. And so I have some paint right here in a little container. So I'm just going to show you real fast as we wrap up our video here, just how you can paint. Okay, so this one, I don't want you to get confused. This is the air dry, and you can see I carved the designs just the same as I was doing here while the clay was wet. And then I took the air dry clay and I let it dry for a couple days. I actually put it outside. It dries really fast outside. And so now I have those little lines in there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and grab, I'll just show you. So this is acrylic paint, and I'm going to just paint my line. There we go. Just paint my line. And I can paint any colors I want. I could do all my lines and then fill them in with different colors, or I can, yeah. See, I can paint the background. There. See? And it's with acrylic paint. And then it just dries. And then I think you could probably finish it with like a glossy Mod Podge, seal it if you wanted to. But this clay is really, really hard. So it's really neat because it won't keep as long as a fired piece of pottery, but people really like it. And when you're working with it, it feels like real clay. Okay, so back to this one. So this one, you want to take your underglaze, and basically you just do the same thing. It's really not any different. It's just a different material that you're using, a different art material supply. Okay, so this one I have kind of an orange. The thing about the pottery is that you cannot, the color is, because it's clay, it looks kind of grayed down, see that? And when you're applying the underglaze, you can see the first coat is kind of thin. You're gonna wanna let that dry, and then you can put a second coat over it. I don't have time to let mine dry, but if you put one coat on, it'll look like a watercolor, 2 becomes more opaque, and 3 is really opaque. I can show you, this one has 1 coat on it, and so you can see it looks more like a watercolor there, whereas these little dots that I made out of clay, they have like 3 coats on them. So you can see the difference in the opaqueness. The same with this one here. Okay, so these would be painted with the underglaze, and then you would have to, like, you can arrange with the ceramic store. They probably would fire it for a, you know, minimal cost to have your pottery. Some of them probably do that. So anyway, so I think that's everything, and hopefully by the time you finish, you will have a talking pinch pot that communicates your story and that is meaningful to you. And I hope that this time that you've enjoyed creating and engaging in the creative process of working with clay. And who knows, maybe 1,000 years from now, somebody might find our talking pinch pots and they'll get to learn about you or me, how we lived during this time, and our families. And so just, you know, just think about what you want to put on there, because you never know, 1,000 years from now, somebody might find it. So, okay, so I'm just going to say goodbye. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me today.